You are listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. My name is Amanda, and I am joined by my two friends, Tyler and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage. And we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So, welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. Happy Friday.
Yay. Another happy Friday.
It's always a happy Friday with you guys.
Well, okay. Friday is the happiest day of the week, right? Like that is everybody like counts down to Friday. It's the beginning of the weekend, like, and we just happen to host our favorite show on Fridays. So
right.
You know.
I feel like we can make like we can make like a tutorial out of this. Like, how do you make sure that at least one day a week you're having like a happy day? Take your two best friends, start a podcast with them, and just have the time of your lives on this podcast. Like that's our tutorial, right? There we go. We already gave like a great tip.
That's it. Thanks for coming to the show today, but y'all see ya. I mean, it does open that question though of. It does really open that question for like more conversation around, you know, I don't actually, I literally just blanked. I was going to say something so profound, y'all. And then it just fizzled out of my brain, but I think I was going somewhere in that space of around happiness and how to create happiness, because Stephanie mentioned creating happiness and I don't know where I was going with it. So I'm going to pass it off.
Well, my question would be, how do we have that, instead of like, oh, Friday is just the favorite day of the week, right? Like almost how do we make every day our favorite? And of course, there's going to be bits and pieces that we don't love about every day, right? Like that's just such that is life. But I wonder like what it is that we could do to infuse more joy into every day.
That's a good question.
Ooh, I like this question. And I'm gonna challenge this right away. I'm gonna challenge that this is not even the master of all questions here.
Ooh, okay,
instead of saying what can we do, like who can we be? Like what's the state? And instead of like, oh, what do I need to add to my schedule to be happier, right? Like it's more like, how can I show up to be a happier? I don't know if happy is even the best thing to say here, but how can I show up to be more in alignment with who I want to be or become? So I would say that instead of looking like, okay, what is the strategy? Okay, I'm going to Google a YouTube video, right? That's what we all do at 3 a.m., right? Like, how do I make myself happier on a daily basis? I don't know, whatever your concerns are at 3 a.m. in the morning. And instead of that, okay, how do I put myself in a state that allows the happiness to flow? Like, how can I make myself basically happier from the inside out? And this is the trick. And this is when, like you said, Amanda, every day can be your happy day when you just make that happen for yourself instead of relying on the outside circumstances. Because I know for us, it's easy because Friday is generally, like you said, Tyler, a happy day for everyone. And of course, it makes the three of us super happy to be here. But I think the ultimate goal should be that we don't need to rely on external circumstances for us to become happy. Like we should be our own happy captain, so to say.
Yeah, well, that's a complete mic drop moment, Stephanie. And also, you know, obviously we came in today, we're like, oh, it's Friday, you know, we're here, it's with my two best friends, like we're doing a podcast. We love Fridays for that reason. But I had a meeting earlier this morning, and I was talking to my soon-to-be client, and we were chatting, and I was like, I just feel so joyful every single day because I am doing something that I'm passionate about. So I think in order to achieve joy and in order to achieve happiness, you have to first start by focusing in on your passions, focusing in on the things that bring you joy, you know? And this doesn't, and I'm not saying this as like, okay, you have to go profit off of your passions. That's not the message here. The message is every single day we have an option, we have a choice where we can tap into passion by making choices to do things that we are passionate about. Like maybe you're super incredibly passionate about, you know, making clay earrings. I tried that. That's why I'm making this example. I tried that and realized that's not my passion. Um, but you know, maybe that is your passion. Maybe after a long day at work, you come home and you devote 30 minutes to just making some amazing clay earrings and get to like sit there in your passion. You know, I think the bigger goal in life is that we are aligned with our passions and we have more passionate moments than unpassionate moments. You know, I feel very blessed because I get to coach full time right now, which is my passion, and I spend a lot of time every single day in my passion. And and here's a big thing to distinguish too is passion isn't always like rainbow and butterflies and sunshine. There are frustrating moments in passion. And I was telling my therapist there, I was like, I am incredibly fulfilled right now. But at the same time, there are moments that frustrate me. And she goes, well, you know, that's just life. She goes, you can be fulfilled and still be frustrated. Like they can coexist. And I think oftentimes what we are trying to do is we are trying to not let them coexist. You know, we're like, oh my God, I have to be completely fulfilled, completely joyful. And if I'm not feeling that 100%, then something's out of aligned. And it's like, no, you can feel joyful and still feel stuck or still feel like there's areas of your life that you need to change. Like this is not an all or nothing conversation. And I think when you start to going back to Amanda's point of like, you know, you getting on YouTube at 3 o'clock in the morning, looking up all of these solutions, all of the solutions are always like that all or nothing mentality where it's like you're striving for that 100% joyful at all the time. And it's like, no, they like the opposites can coexist. And how do you become okay with coexisting in those dualities there?
Yeah, for me, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Like, and though that's, I mean, it's not a perfect formula either, but just like, you know, something to kind of keep in mind, because I feel like this is what we're doing, right? We're often looking for like, well, what is the answer? We're looking for something very like concrete and like specific to, you know, be able to measure something or being able to, you know, do those things. And so for me, I feel like in that conversation of like, okay, well, how do I know, right? So if 80% of the time there's the joyful passion, excitement, and then 20% of the time it's a little bit challenging, frustrating. Okay, that's a pretty, because for me, I feel like we often use this word balance and almost overuse the word balance because it makes sense. But I think when we hear balance, or no, I used to think balance meant, well, it's 50-50. Like it's got to be even, right? And sometimes it's not. So I think that 80-20, or, you know, knowing that it's not perfectly like evenly balanced, maybe. I don't even know how to switch that. But you know what I mean, right? Like that there is this way of, more often than not, we have that feeling of joy and passion. And something that's just coming up to me, and I don't know, I feel like this can be valuable to others, maybe a little bit different than what we normally do, but I'm going to put it out there and see what your guys' thoughts are, because what I think is super inspiring and really important for people to know and see, I love, Tyler, that you've highlighted this, you can still be frustrated and passionate, but I also would love to throw out the question there, like, what helped you guys to discover your passions? Like, what was because there's a discovery process to passion, right? And so I would think that I don't know, I just feel like that could be super valuable in sharing our own experiences in getting to that place of passion.
I think that from the three of us, Amanda, you discovered your passion for teen coaching like the earliest, right? Do you want to start? Do you want to share your story?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I could start. Like, I was asking a question. I'm like, I didn't expect
no pressure.
No, yeah. But for me, so as Stephanie said, yes, I definitely found my passion for working with teens very early. And I think for me, really, a lot of that came from even before I started my coaching journey. So I remember even younger than my own teens. I know I talk about that a lot, like my struggles as a teenager. But I also think that if I'm really looking at this journey of discovering my passion, it came at a really young age. Like, I was the kid who at recess, when I was in school, I would stay inside and I would help in the kindergarten classrooms, or like, I was always involved with kids. I have 3 younger siblings, and so I've always just been around kids, and I've been very drawn to kids, and kids have always been very drawn to me. And so whenever I'm around kids, I just get so excited. Doesn't matter how old they are. And I think that was what it was, is, as I got into my teen years, I got really confused on, well, yeah, what is it that I'm passionate about, and what is it that I like to do? And when I realized that was really about helping other people discover their purpose, to discover their passions, or just what excites them. Like, what are their strengths? What did they have to offer to the world? And for me, again, kind of going back to that journey as a teen and really struggling, noticing how much I could have used the things that I now teach to teenagers gave me that sense of, yes, I had the passion and I had the love and I had the joy and excitement of being around children, but there was more purpose than that. There was more meaning to the work that I was doing in the world. And so I think we can say that in having passion and having purpose, I feel like almost those could be used in some ways like interchangeably. But I also think that there's this jacket almost, if this metaphor, hopefully this comes out the same way that it's in my head. Hopefully it comes out in the way that makes sense. But I'm imagining this as almost like the jacket, right? Like, my passion for me, like underneath the jacket, is to be able to support people to live a fulfilled, happy, joyful life. That's my passion. This is my purpose. And I think the jacket then could be, yeah, maybe it's the teen coach. Maybe it's the teacher. Maybe it's the personal trainer. Like, it's all of those things still serve the passion and the purpose, but there's a different jacket that I could wear. And the more that I started to wear the jacket of the teen coach, it started to feel like less of just a jacket. And it was like something that I didn't want to take it off. When you put something, even like, taking it one step further, you put something on, you're like, oh yeah. Like, I love that outfit. I love that, just the way that it makes you feel, right? And not so much even just externally, but that internal feeling of just, I feel so confident. I feel so good. I feel so like good in my skin. That feeling of, you just get all the warm and fuzzy feelings. And so I think that's what really kept me going on that path, because there was frustration and there was many people who told me that's not going to work. No one's going to care about coaching for teenagers. And because I had that passion, because I knew that I had that purpose under the jacket, I was so driven by it that it didn't matter what other people said or other people told me. I just kept pursuing because I knew how much it genuinely lit me up every time I talk about it, every time I think about it. Like, I'm up at 3 a.m. thinking, what are the new programs that I can offer for young people to be able to support them? So I think it's those things, right? That you just can't stop thinking about in a positive way, because there's other things, but in a positive way, that there's this, I think it's a lot of, how it makes you feel. That was a really long story just to tell that, but I think I would say that from my experience. But I'm curious to hear your guys, because I feel like I'll be super inspired by it as well, because I'm sure there's pieces I'll be like, oh yeah, me too.
There's definitely this element, with the jacket. I really like it. I think of it as like the Superwoman suit or the Superman suit, like something you put on and you use this as a tool, right? You use the learnings of your coaching education as a tool to facilitate your purpose. Like this is the way I would phrase it. And then also what comes to mind in this story for me is this wholesome journey of turning pain into power, because there's so many ways, like what you talked about on the inside of your jacket, wanting for people to live a fulfilled and happy and wonderful life. Like that is that's, I think, what a lot of people are aiming for with what they want to do with their life. And so it's like, how do we do that? And I think too many people focus on like the how do I do it? Like what are my tools, kind of, right? But in order to find the jacket that fits us best, I think it's about finding first the purpose inside. Like what is the thing that will radiate from the inside that will keep us going, even when people say, like, for example, in your story, Amanda, when people say like, oh, team coaching, I don't think that's gonna take off, right? So that you kept going. And I think that's so courageous of you also. And it speaks so much of how tapped in you are into your purpose, that you didn't let yourself get dragged down by all those, Nellies.
It's almost like that why beneath the why, right? That's what I'm reminded of. It's like, well, why is that important to you? And then, well, why is that important to you? And why is that important to you? Right. And taking it those like layers and layers and layers deep. And I think when we can connect it to something like, yes, being in service of others. And also at the same time, for me, I feel like a big piece of that is being an example of what is possible for others. Like you're saying, like I said, it's there are going to be people who are going to say, well, that's a silly idea. Like, why would you, that's an ugly jacket. Who would buy that jacket? Right? But I like that jacket and it's my jacket and I'm going to wear it. And being able to, I think, connect that deeper purpose, the deeper meaning to that why, to that core of who are you in the world, really? Because I think when we get purpose, passion, those kinds of things, often it's like, well, what's the career? And I think that's what we're saying. This is like almost, I don't know, maybe the how, as you're saying, Stephanie, right? Like the how of the purpose. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, my journey started in high school when I was on the fast track for Broadway. I was a theater kid. I was a stage manager. I had my whole life planned out when I was 17. I knew I was going to the University of Evansville. I was going to go study stage management. I was going to intern on Broadway, maybe do my goal was to intern on Broadway, graduate, get a touring production, like travel and tour, with a touring Broadway show, and then eventually like end up back in New York where I was going to work on Broadway as a stage manager. And like that was my career. Like I had it all planned out. I had a 15-year plan. Like it was, I was ready at 17. I knew exactly where I was going in life. And then the summer I graduated, I was finalizing paperwork to go to college and realized that I didn't have the money to actually go to the college that I wanted to go to, because it was like a private college here in the States, and tuition was $44,000 a year. And then room and board was like another $15,000 a year. And so we were looking at like a very high cost for the first year of college. And I had a theater scholarship. I had like a smaller scholarship. I had government assistance, but like I still was like $35,000 away from being able to afford 1 year of college. And at 17, I was like, I can't do that. Like, I don't want to take out $35,000 1 year and then $35,000 another year and then $35,000 another year and then be, 6 figures in debt from college. And so in like 2 seconds, I made this decision, and then my whole 15-year plan completely like went up in smoke. And then I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going, because my whole identity all the way through high school was I was the theater kid. That's just who I was. And so and I've used this before, but I said I got thrusted off the conveyor belt of life, and then all of a sudden I had to stop and ask myself the big questions. Who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? And that's what started that inner peace that Stephanie was talking about getting crystal clear on what it is that your heart desired. And I said at 17, I told myself 2 things. Number 1, I was never going to settle in life. Like I wasn't going to settle for anything less than extraordinary. And number 2, I was going to find the career that made my heart sing. Because I knew at 17 that your career, it takes up most of your time, most of your life. And if you aren't passionately aligned to a career and to your pursuits, life is going to be a hell of a lot harder. And so I set out, I went to junior college, went down this whole like my 20s were just so up and down and all over. But I think when I look back on this, I gave myself permission to try things. And so many people out there, they don't give themselves permission to try things. When I was at junior college, I took a business class, I took a film class, I took a creative writing class, I took psychology. Everybody was like, Tyler, why don't you just take the basics? And I was like, no, I'm discovering myself. I'm trying to figure out what is the career that I want. And so from a young age, I've always let my heart lead, and I've always allowed myself to just explore and try things out, with that mantra of, I'm going to find the one thing that makes my heart sing. And, that eventually stumbled into coaching, and now we're all here together. But, I think the core of my story is you have to be willing to try things. You have to be willing to take some risks, to, go down a path and then go, nope, that's not my path, and like completely do a 180 and flip, you know? I mean, I went from, when I look at my careers, I went from being the theater kid to getting into filmmaking. My undergrad, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and now I'm a coach. Like, like my life path was not straightforward. It wasn't, I didn't check off this box, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, but I was discovering myself, I was figuring myself out, and that is more important than like checking off all the boxes in a particular order, you know? And so that's I think my story. What led me to passion was my ability to just go search for it and just go try things until I finally found the one thing that literally makes my heart sing.
Being able to adapt is such an important piece of it, and not getting too stuck and discouraged when, I think you're, as you were saying, Tyler, that perfectly, it's got to be the 15-year plan or nothing else, right? And being able to pivot and change and adapt to different situations that might come up, and knowing that it doesn't just have to be the one thing, that it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to realize that, oh, you know what? I thought that was it, but that's really not actually what lights me up, And I think that's really important to remember, that even though we've talked about that there may be frustration along the way, but there are going to be moments where things might shift and change into unexpected ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's such an important thing, that I recognize myself in that for sure. And then also this, like, not giving myself a hard time for not getting it on the first try, like imagine like when kids are starting to walk, like toddlers, right? And you're like, they don't get it on the first try, they fall on their bum, and you would just say like, oh, whatever, I'm giving up now. It's not that kid's never going to walk, like, right?
Walking's not for me.
And we do this with ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. And I was like that too. And I would say that I made my 20s a lot harder than I guess they had to be, because I was in that boat too. I was so sure when I finished high school, okay, what university, what do I want to do? And I knew I was passionate about traveling. I love to travel and I wanted to see the world. So I somehow did this very useful thing where you mix up what you love with what you should be pursuing. And I made that like the focus of my career. So I studied hotel management. And I already recognized before the end of my first year that this is not going to go down the way I thought it would go down. I was not clicking with the other students. It wasn't my passion. That's basically what my gut feeling told me. Look, this is not the industry where you're going to grow old. Like, this is not a happy ever after thing here. And so it took me, I finished it though. Like, I really finished it. And then I guess I had these weird lost years, not lost, but, just like dabbling and not knowing and trying to understand and find myself. And this is what I hadn't done yet. So I very similar to Tyler, was just all over the place in my 20s. No idea what I was doing, but I tried to use my intuition more and more to guide me and trust myself. And that was a hell of a process, And I remember, so the way I kind of found my passion was in the beginning of my 20s, I did my first coaching program, and I signed up for something where I would be helped to figure out my body and my body image issues and why I wasn't happy with myself and my body. That was a big thing for me back then. And it led me on this path of first of all, getting into coaching. I had no idea that coaching existed before that. I knew there was therapy and there were like teachers and like coaches in sport. but I didn't know that coaching was a thing, and then I knew about it then from this program that I took. And then I was doing other things and working other jobs, and then on the side, sort of, I always did self-development and read some books and took some courses. And I had this really, I have one of those stories where it's a moment, like it's a moment that changed everything. But I know not everyone's story is like that. So I was in this purpose course. It was literally a course designed to find your purpose. And I was in this session, and the facilitator, she was asking me a bunch of questions, and I told her, like, I'm not happy in my job. I was working in hotel sales. Can you imagine me in sales? Like,
oh
gosh,
no.
yeah. So I was working in hotel sales, and I told her, like, I don't want that. So I was really good at knowing and listening to my intuition in what I don't want. And then in this moment, she was like, okay, picture your next 6 months. Do you want to try new things and all of that? And I was like, no, I'm just so freaking tired. I don't want to try things. I just want to like find it, because I thought I was so close. Like it could hit me, in the head and I wouldn't see it, kind of situation. And so she then went on to ask me the $1 million question for me in that moment. She was like, okay, if that's not what you want, then what is it that you do want? And that really changed my mindset in that moment. Instead of always just going randomly to places and trying things and then figuring out, okay, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. That's a really good strategy at some point, right? But then you got to make that shift at some point and say, okay, what is it that I do want? What makes me feel good? Because it's great to know what makes me feel bad, and this is not what I want, but then also what makes me feel good. And I think this is another part of self-exploration. And then the first thing that popped into my head in that moment was this first coaching program I did, and what the facilitator of that program had done for me. And I knew this is exactly what I want to do for other people. So I went to her website. This was like years after that, actually. I went to her website and I looked up, and I saw that she had done like basic training as a coach and so on. And also like some nutrition courses and everything. And so in that moment, I knew, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to be a coach. Like that's period. And I knew that rash decisions back then were kind of my thing. So I didn't want to just like go head over heels for something that maybe wasn't mine. I didn't trust myself too much at that point. So I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. I'm going to think this over. But honestly, like I never felt so good in my entire life. Like my whole system, my whole body knew, okay, this is it. And then 2 months later, I started to become a coach. So again, like I had this really cool, like, oh, that's the moment thing. But again, not every journey is like that. But I really like this. And I love telling this story because it's like, so like, that's my happy ever after moment for me, actually. And we don't always have them. It's not about having a happy ever after moment at the end, right? It's like making sure that you have all these happy moments in between. And that was definitely one of mine. And just this inner feeling, and I think this is where what you already shared, Amanda, this inside thing, this like passion and purpose that lives inside of ourselves and fills us up, where all of this starts by just, okay, what makes us feel really, really good about ourselves? And then also, what gifts do we have for the world? I think that's a really important piece to discover about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I also love too that you talked about trusting your gut, like trusting that intuition and knowing that if you're being pulled towards something, because even in the beginning, there was many times where like these things would come up, or I had a friend at one point be like, have you ever thought of being a coach? And so like these things would pop up where it was like, I thought about that, but I wasn't going for it because I'm like, is that like what we want to get all the answers to all the questions and like make sure that it's the right thing. And as Tyler was describing it, as like checking all the boxes, right? You want to do all those things. And sometimes it's, you're being called towards something and it keeps popping up. And those are the things that, like when you have that gut feeling, when you just feel, it's something that you feel. I really think that it's something that you feel, and when you feel it. And if you're questioning it, then it's probably not it.
Okay, there's like so many things happening right now. Number one, I just have to point out all three of us discovered passion in our 20s. like most people go their entire lives never really feeling like they have a passion, or never feeling like they found it or aligned with it, or however. We did it in our 20s. Like, I was just sitting here thinking about that. I was like, and for so many years I felt like I was behind. I was like, I don't have it figured out yet. And I'm like,
Yes.
most people don't have it figured out at all. Even successful people who make a lot of money oftentimes aren't fulfilled, aren't happy, aren't passionate. And I wouldn't trade my passion in for anything. I wear my passion like a badge of honor because I have it, and I discovered it, and I allowed myself to go there. And as Amanda was saying about like the intuition, and Amanda was talking intuition, and then Stephanie asked the question, what do you want? What do you want? It is literally that simple to answer, what do you want? And then listen to your intuition. Because your intuition, your gut is going to tell you what it is that you want. And then you have to have the courage to act, but that's another story, but it really is as simple as asking the question, what do I want? And then stopping long enough to align with your gut, align with your intuition, and listen to what your body is telling you, and then move forward with that. And it's like, when you develop that skill, and when you and I'm not perfect at this yet, and I don't think you ever actually become perfectly like intuitive and like just effortlessly taking action, because there's lots of layers that go into all of this. But the more you can develop that leaning into the intuition, trusting yourself, the more power you're going to have in your life. And I'm always coming back to, this is your life. How do you want to live it? It is that simple. The question is, what do you want out of life? And then you answer it.
And then, what's so interesting is that most people, when you ask them, what do you want? And I was like that too, right? What do you want? Like, what are you most passionate about? What does your perfect picture life, if I could just hand this to you right now, look like? What do most people do in that situation?
I wouldn't want this, and I wouldn't want that.
They start to come up with all these reasons why they can't have it.
Mm-hmm.
They start to come up with all these
true.
like, no, but, right? Like, yeah, I want this, but actually I have this situation right now, and this is what's coming up. So I know this is our brains are just wired that way. We can't turn this part of our brain off, right? It's just always looking for, ooh, that sounds dangerous. We haven't done that before. Maybe we shouldn't try that new thing because we have no idea what's going to happen. And that's okay. But I think it's about this skill of letting that part be there, like letting the fear come up, and it's okay that it's there, but then acting anyway. Tyler mentioned this already, having the courage to also act on it. So it's great. And this is what I would say, like, I've met so many people, and we had those conversations about, oh yeah, I know what I want. Like, I know what I'm passionate about, but, and then the but comes and all the excuses are starting to come in. And yes, I would say, like you said, Tyler, it is that simple. If you haven't found your purpose, what you're passionate about, something that really lights you up from the inside out, yet it is just that. Amanda, you were mentioning it before too, of like, just ask the why questions, right? Like, why do I want that? Like, and why do I want that? And why is that important to me? Like, just keep going deeper into the layers until you find really the core of what is driving you, like what is igniting that fire inside you every day. And then it's a whole other story to then also do it. Like, I really want to just stress this here, because also for me, this has been a big part of my journey of like knowing it. I've known that my coaching is my destiny, my soulmate for quite a few years now. I'm not there yet that I'm full-time coaching and living what I picture my dream right now, if you will. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, and it doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong. It's also a journey, and to take this courageous action and to make it happen, it's not going to happen overnight, and that's okay. And that we can be gentle and compassionate with ourselves, that it is a journey. I feel like I really wanted to throw this in here. While I think discovering your passion can be a very simple act of like a split second, then to turn it into action, to have patience, I guess that's the message that I want to just convey here. Like, have patience, and all the overnight successes have been in the making for 10 years. There's no such thing as an overnight success. If you look at any person who all of a sudden is like famous and whatnot, this has been in the making for like 10 years or so.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm always coming back to is, let's just enjoy the journey. Let's find, and this is kind of coming full circle back to like joy and happiness and things like that. I mean, what does it take to just find joy in the journey? We're always so focused on reaching the destination, becoming the overnight success, trying to speed up the process, that we don't respect the timeline. We don't respect the journey, because it's really easy to see people who are like, how I made $10,000 in 10 minutes and you can too. And we're human. We're driven by money. We're driven, of course we want more money for whatever reason we want it. And so it pulls on that like desire of like, yeah, I want to make $10,000 in 10 minutes. How do I do that? And I'm like, well, first you got to have like 10 years of experience, to be able to execute something like that. But they don't talk about that. They don't tell you that. They advertise like the quick bippity boppity boo, and like that's not what's happening on the back end. The back end is a long, drawn out journey that is full of ups and downs and struggle and grittiness. But that's the beauty of it. That's where you get to find the most fulfillment, the most excitement, the most, like, to me, when I'm in it, that's when I'm feeling most alive. It's not when I'm like, okay, I've reached the destination and now I can relax. No, it's when I'm like clawing my way through the mud and, really just being in the thick of creation, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to create a life, and creation is not pretty. It's not easy. It's not, it's very messy, and like, why is it so hard for us to enjoy the mess? Why is it so hard for us to enjoy the journey? Because we're so damn focused on the destination that we miss out on the true essence of life.
You know, I want to throw in something silly here because I just thought of it when you said like make 10,000 in like 10 minutes. So last week we were talking about the Grammys, and then Taylor Swift came up. So I read this at some point that her last tour, she made per second over $1,000 or something. Like imagine like you stand on stage for like 120 minutes, and then every second of that you make $1,000. It was over $1,000, I think. So for everyone listening or watching this, I would just give you this advice: if you're ever in doubt, ask yourself, what would Taylor Swift do? Because she makes over $1,000 in a second. I'm sure she knows stuff.
Well, and to pull from that too, like, she's also been doing this for more than half of her life, you know? And everybody wants to, a lot of people like to discredit Taylor Swift, and they try to, discredit the artists because, they're like, oh yeah, they got it easy right now. And I'm like, yeah, they got it easy now, but they didn't have it easy in the beginning, And most of us were afraid coming back to that, like, you have to try things, you have to fail at things, you have to go out and do something different and decide whether or not that's working for you. We're too afraid to even start that. We're too afraid to even begin. And we think that, oh yeah, I can make, $10,000 in 10 minutes or $1,000 a second or anything crazy like that. Just bippity boppity boo, like magic. No, there's no magic in success. There's no magic in that long-term game. Like, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, you have to show up and continue to show up and continue to fight and continue to have a strong spirit so that you don't burn out, so that you don't fail. I mean, you will fail, so that you don't like give up, you don't burn out, you don't stop. Like, don't stop. This is why I adapted that mindset. Never settle. Never settle. Because if you do, you're going to live a very average, lackluster life. And that's just a belief that I have. And I, this is why I'm so passionate about coaching and helping people think differently, because you do have to think differently, and you have to show up differently, and you have to make the choices yourself. And making a choice for yourself is the hardest thing that we can do. It breaks it goes against, I mean, it threatens our safety. It threatens our belonging. It threatens our, the love of others when we decide to go act and do something for ourselves. It's the most courageous thing that you can do. It's the bravest thing that you can do. And it's the best thing that you can do to create the life that you are truly passionate about, that truly brings you joy.
And I would add, as we're pursuing all of these things, right? Or we're trying to figure it out, knowing that what's meant for you won't pass you by.
Mm-hmm.
What's truly meant for you will never pass you by.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great reminder, Amanda, because I think a lot of people feel like they've missed the boat, like they've missed their time.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's never like what you are truly meant to do in this life. It is always there. It is always walking right next to you. You just have to have the courage to act.
I feel so complete now.
I do too. I feel like we just, I don't know what we just did, but I feel like we just gave people the answers to life. You're welcome. You know? And I feel so at peace sitting here at the end of this conversation.
Tyler, I wonder, sorry, is that what you're passionate about?
A little.
Are you maybe fired up from your passion?
Just a little, maybe just a smidgen. I don't know if I've quite cracked it open yet. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was so great. I feel like we can definitely say, or it's safe to say, this is something where all three of us are extremely passionate about. Like having these conversations, you know, I think is, yes.
I just wanted to like just say once again, like, thank you, Amanda, also for this reminder that at the end of the day, you know, what's meant for you, like it's gonna come your way. You can't miss it. There is such a thing as divine timing, and it all comes down to listening to this beautiful teeny tiny voice in our belly, stomach area, our intuition. And once we tune into that, like everything's just gonna sort itself out. And it sounds so crazy, but that's the magic. So yeah, like Tyler said, we really gave like the answers and the secrets to life. So
go forth and be passionate, everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so grateful, just ending on a bit of gratitude today. So always so grateful for this space, for these conversations, for the two of you, and for everybody who's listening. We love you, and I just hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Friday. Continue to be awesome.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversation going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.